The glass exploded before Bianca could even scream. Shards scattered across the marble floor as a man was thrown through the window, his body slamming violently into the grand hallway, blood spraying across the white walls like paint. Bianca froze, her breath caught in her throat. Because the man wasn't just bleeding. His neck was torn open, drained. And standing over him was Michael Di Montero, his eyes glowing. Not human, not even close. And just as Bianca took a step back, Michael turned, slowly, his gaze locking onto her like a predator who had just found something far more interesting than his prey. Silence, heavy, suffocating. Then, he smiled. A dark, dangerous smile that made her heart stop. Now, that's a problem. Before we go further, if you love dark stories like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you sign a contract if it meant saving your life, but losing your freedom? Because Bianca Martini didn't have a choice, and what she signed would bind her to monsters. 2 days earlier, rain poured heavily over the cemetery as Bianca stood frozen beside her father's grave. The world around her felt distant, muted, gone. Everything she had was buried 6 feet under. Her father, her savings, her future. And worst of all, the truth she had just discovered. He owed us. The voice came from behind her, deep, calm, and terrifyingly controlled. Bianca turned slowly, and there he was, Don Alessandro Di Montero, a man whose name alone made powerful men tremble. Tall, dominant, eyes colder than winter, a predator hiding in plain sight. "I don't understand," Bianca whispered, her voice shaking. "My father was a lawyer. He wouldn't—" He wasn't just a lawyer. Alessandro stepped closer, too close. He was desperate. Bianca swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" Alessandro didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled out a document, clean, precise, deadly in its simplicity. A contract. Bianca stared at it, her hands trembling as she took it. Then she read, and her blood ran cold. Marriage. To his son. For 1 year. In exchange, her life. Her father's debt erased. Her safety guaranteed. Bianca looked up slowly. "This is insane." "No," Alessandro replied calmly. "It's mercy." Her heart pounded violently. "I won't do it." Silence. Then Alessandro leaned in slightly, and when he spoke again, his voice dropped, colder, darker. "You misunderstand your position, Bianca." A pause. "You're not being asked." Her breath hitched. "And if I refuse?" Alessandro's eyes didn't flicker. "Then your father's debt becomes yours." A longer pause. And unlike him, his gaze darkened. "I don't give extensions." Bianca's fingers tightened around the contract, her entire world collapsing in that moment. This wasn't a choice. It was a trap, and she was already inside it. Tears burned her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Instead, she signed. The wedding was the next day. Fast, quiet, controlled. No love, no joy, just power. Bianca stood at the altar, her heart numb, her body present, but her soul somewhere far away. And then he arrived. Michael Di Montero, tall, imposing, dangerously handsome. His presence alone shifted the air in the room. Women watched him, men avoided his eyes, and Bianca, she felt something she couldn't explain. Fear, but not just fear. Something deeper, something darker. Michael didn't look at her, not once. Not when he stood beside her, not when he took her hand, not even when he said his vows. Cold, detached, uninterested. Like she was nothing more than paperwork. And maybe she was. The ceremony ended, the rings exchanged, the deal sealed. Bianca Martini was no longer free. She belonged to the Montero family. Hours later, the mansion loomed like a fortress in the darkness, massive, silent, alive with secrets. Bianca stood alone in the bedroom, her new bedroom, her hands gripping the edge of the bed, waiting for him. Minutes passed, then an hour, then more. Nothing. No Michael. No explanation, just silence. And then the door creaked open. Bianca turned sharply. And there he was, Michael, standing in the doorway, watching her. His gaze slow, deliberate, dangerous. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, locking it. Click. Bianca's heart jumped. He said nothing, just walked toward her. Each step measured, controlled, predatory, until he stood right in front of her, close enough for her to feel his breath. "Relax," he murmured, his voice low, smooth, terrifyingly calm. "I'm not going to hurt you." Bianca swallowed. "You don't seem like the kind of man who gives reassurance." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Smart. He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her face. Her body stiffened instantly. He noticed. Of course he did. "You're afraid," he said quietly. "I should be." Michael leaned in slightly, his lips just inches from hers. "You should be terrified." Her breath caught, but then he pulled back. Just like that, breaking the moment. "I don't touch things that don't belong to me." Bianca frowned. "I'm your wife." His eyes darkened. "No." A pause. "You're a contract." Silence, heavy. Then he turned away, walking toward the balcony, as if she no longer existed. Bianca stood there, confused, shaken, angry, but also something else, something she refused to name. Later that night, Bianca woke up, alone, the room empty, cold. She sat up slowly, her heart uneasy. Something felt wrong. Then she heard it, a sound, distant, a scream, soft but real. Bianca froze. Another scream, this time louder, coming from downstairs. She hesitated. She should stay. She knew she should. But something inside her, something stubborn, something dangerous, pushed her forward. And before she could stop herself, she followed the sound. The deeper she went into the mansion, the darker it became. The air heavier, thicker, until she reached a door, slightly open, light spilling through the gap, and voices, low, cold. Bianca stepped closer, slowly, carefully. Then she looked inside. And what she saw destroyed everything she thought she knew. Men, on their knees, begging, broken. And standing before them, Alessandro, calm, unmoved, while beside him, Michael. But this wasn't the man she met earlier, no. This was something else, something terrifying. His eyes glowed, faintly red. His expression void of humanity. One of the men screamed, "Please, please, have mercy!" Michael tilted his head slightly, almost curious. Then, in a blur, he moved, faster than humanly possible, grabbing the man by the throat, lifting him effortlessly. Bianca's heart slammed violently against her chest. No, this isn't real. But it was. She watched, frozen, as Michael leaned in and sank his teeth into the man's neck. Blood everywhere. The man's scream choked into silence, his body going limp, drained, lifeless. Bianca gasped, a small sound, but it was enough. Michael stopped. Slowly, he turned his head and looked straight at her. Silence. Deathly. Then he dropped the body and walked toward the door, toward her. Each step echoing like a countdown. Bianca stumbled back, her breathing erratic, panicked. No! The door opened, and there he stood, blood still on his lips, eyes glowing, watching her like prey. You weren't supposed to see that. If you're already hooked, it only gets darker from here. You weren't supposed to see that. Michael's voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that made fear crawl under Bianca's skin. She shook her head, backing away slowly. What are you? The question came out broken, barely a whisper. Michael didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer. And Bianca turned, running. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she sprinted through the dark hallway, her bare feet slamming against the cold marble floor. Get away! Get away! Get away! Her thoughts spiraled. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But behind her, she heard nothing. No footsteps, no chase, and somehow, that was worse. She reached the staircase, almost slipping, grabbing the railing. And then, a hand, wrapped around her wrist, firm, unbreakable. Bianca gasped. Her body yanked backward violently, slamming into something solid. Him. Michael. He didn't even look like he had moved. His breathing steady, unchanged. How far did you think you'd get? He murmured near her ear. Bianca struggled instantly. Let me go! She pushed against his chest, but it was like pushing a wall. Please, just let me go! Her voice cracked. For the first time, real fear. Michael's grip tightened slightly. Not enough to hurt, but enough to remind her she wasn't in control. You ran, he said quietly. A pause. Humans always run. Bianca froze, her chest rising and falling rapidly. I'm not staying here with monsters. Silence. Then, Michael turned her around to face him. His eyes were no longer glowing, but somehow that made it worse. Because now he looked human, and she knew he wasn't. You're already here, he said, and there's no leaving. Pause for a second. If you were Bianca right now, would you fight or pretend to submit? Comment below, because what she does next changes everything. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming." Bianca swallowed hard, her mind racing. Think. You killed him!" Her voice trembled, but her eyes held his. Bold, even now. Michael watched her, closely. Yes. No denial, no shame, just truth. "Why?" she asked. "Because he betrayed us." A beat. "And in our world," his voice dropped, "betrayal is death." Bianca shook her head slowly. "This is insane. This isn't justice, this is murder!" Michael stepped closer, and suddenly the air shifted, heavy, dangerous. "You still think this is your world," he said. "It's not." Another step. "You married into something far older, far darker." Another. "Than laws." Bianca's back hit the wall, nowhere left to go. "And what exactly did I marry into?" she whispered. Michael stared at her, long, silent. Then he leaned in, close enough for her to feel his breath. "For now." A pause. "You'll learn." He released her, just like that, stepping back, walking away, as if nothing had happened. Bianca stood frozen, trying to process, trying to breathe, but her world was already unraveling. Later. Michael's room. Bianca stood near the door, refusing to step further inside. "You brought me here," she said, her voice steadier now. "Talk." Michael poured himself a drink, unbothered. "You're not in a position to demand anything. Then I'll make myself clear." His eyes flickered toward her. Interest. Finally. Bianca stepped forward. "If I'm stuck here, if I'm forced into this marriage," her voice sharpened, "I deserve the truth." Silence. Then Michael smirked slightly. "You don't break easily." "Should I?" "No." He took a slow sip. "I prefer it this way." Bianca crossed her arms. "I'm not scared of you." Michael laughed softly, low, dangerous. "That's the problem." He set the glass down, then walked toward her, slowly, deliberately. "Because you should be." Bianca held her ground, even as her heart pounded violently, even as every instinct screamed at her to run. "I'm not," she repeated. Michael stopped right in front of her, close, too close. "Then let's test that." Before she could react, he moved, faster than her eyes could follow, pinning her gently but firmly against the wall. Her breath caught instantly, his hand beside her head, caging her in. "Your heart," he murmured, his gaze dropping to her chest, "is racing." Bianca swallowed hard. "That doesn't mean I'm scared." Michael leaned closer, his lips brushing near her ear. "It means your body knows what you refuse to admit." A pause. "Danger excites you." Her breath hitched. "No." "Liar." The word was soft, but it hit hard. Then something changed. Michael froze, just for a second, his expression shifting, subtly, his gaze snapping back to her neck, to her pulse. Bianca noticed. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Michael didn't answer, because something inside him had awakened. Her scent, her blood. It was different, not normal, not human. It called to him, pulled at something deep and primal, dangerous. He stepped back suddenly, breaking the moment. Bianca blinked, confused. What? Stay away from me. His voice was sharper now, controlled but strained. Bianca frowned. You were just… I said, stay away. Silence. Tense. Heavy. What's wrong with you? She demanded. Michael turned away, running a hand through his hair, as if fighting something. You wouldn't understand. Then explain it. I can't. Bianca stepped closer, stubborn, relentless. Try me. Michael turned back sharply, his eyes flashing, just for a second. Red. Dangerous. Because if I don't control myself… A pause. I might kill you. Silence. Bianca stared at him, searching his face, for fear, for doubt, for anything. But there was none, only truth. And yet, she didn't move, didn't run, didn't scream. Instead, she whispered, Then don't lose control. That did something unexpected. Michael stared at her, long, hard. Then, slowly, he stepped closer again. But this time, different, controlled, measured. His hand lifted, stopping just short of her face, as if asking permission. Bianca didn't pull away, didn't move, didn't breathe. And then, he touched her, softly, brushing his fingers against her cheek, warm, gentle. The complete opposite of what she had just witnessed. Why aren't you afraid? He asked quietly. Bianca met his eyes. Because you haven't hurt me. A pause. And I don't think you want to. Silence. Heavy. Charged. Michael's gaze darkened. You're wrong. But even he didn't sound convinced. Then, suddenly, his phone rang. Once, twice, again, and again, relentless, breaking the moment. Michael ignored it at first, still staring at Bianca, as if caught between two worlds. But the phone kept ringing, urgent, insistent. Finally, he grabbed it, glanced at the screen, and everything changed. His expression gone, replaced with something cold, deadly. What happened? He said into the phone. Silence. Then, his jaw tightened, his eyes darkened. Who did it? Another pause, and then a name. One that would change everything. Gonzalez. Michael ended the call instantly, already moving, already shifting back into something dangerous. Bianca stepped forward. What's going on? He didn't answer, grabbing his coat, heading for the door. Michael! He stopped, just for a second, without turning. My father's been shot. Bianca's breath caught. What? Michael looked over his shoulder, and in his eyes there was no fear, only rage. If he dies… A pause. They all die. He walked out, and the moment the door closed, Bianca felt it. Something shifting, something deeper than fear, because somehow she knew. This was only the beginning. Michael didn't slow down. By the time Bianca reached the balcony, he was already gone, vanished into the night like he had never been human to begin with. The mansion, once silent, was now alive. Men moved fast, voices low but urgent, weapons being loaded, orders being given. Bianca stood there, frozen, trying to process everything. Vampires, murder, blood, and now, war. She didn't realize she had followed the chaos until she was already downstairs. No one stopped her. No one even looked at her. It was like she didn't exist. Or worse, like she already belonged. Hours later, the hospital smelled too clean, too normal for the kind of darkness that had followed them inside. Bianca stood outside the private wing, her arms wrapped around herself. Then she saw him, Michael, standing still, silent, his hands stained with dried blood that wasn't his. "Is he alive?" she asked carefully. Michael didn't look at her. For now. That was all he said, but it was enough. Inside the room, Alessandro Di Montero, the man who had controlled empires, lay weak, pale, barely breathing. Tubes, machines, beeping sounds that felt like they were counting down something inevitable. Bianca hesitated at the door, but Michael walked in like he owned death itself. She followed. Alessandro's eyes opened slowly, weak, but still sharp, still dangerous. He looked at Michael first, then Bianca. And for a moment, something unreadable passed through his gaze. "You signed it," Alessandro said faintly. Bianca nodded, unsure why that mattered right now. "Good," he whispered. "Then it's already too late for you." Michael stepped closer. "Who did this?" His voice wasn't loud, but it carried something lethal. Alessandro's breathing grew heavier. "Lucas Gonzalez." A cough. Blood touched his lips. "He's not the real enemy." Michael's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" But Alessandro didn't answer immediately. His gaze shifted to Bianca again. Longer this time, almost like recognition or regret. Then he said something that made no sense. "Protect the girl." Michael frowned. "Why?" Alessandro's lips parted, but whatever he was about to say died with him. The machine flatlined, and just like that, a king was gone. Silence filled the room, heavy, final. Bianca's heart pounded as she watched Michael, waiting, expecting something, rage, grief, anything. But Michael didn't react, not immediately. He just stood there, staring at his father's body, still, cold. Then slowly, his hand curled into a fist, and the monitor beside him shattered. Glass exploded across the floor. Bianca flinched. Michael turned, and in that moment, there was nothing human left in his eyes. "Everyone involved," he said quietly, "dies." If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a love story. This is war. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me, if you were Michael, would you choose revenge or walk away? Because what he chooses next changes everything. The mansion that night felt different, darker, heavier, as if even the walls knew something had shifted. Bianca stood in the hallway when Veronica appeared, tall, beautiful, dangerous, and furious. "So this is her," Veronica said, her eyes scanning Bianca from head to toe. "The replacement." "I'm not replacing anyone," Bianca replied, steady but cautious. Veronica smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, you already did." She stepped closer. Too close. "Do you even know what you married into?" Bianca didn't answer. Veronica leaned in slightly. "He doesn't love you. He doesn't love anyone. You're just a tool." Bianca held her gaze. "Then why are you so threatened?" That hit hard. Veronica's expression shifted instantly, cold, sharp, dangerous. "You should be careful," she whispered. "Girls like you don't survive here." Her hand moved, fast, grabbing Bianca's arm tightly. Too tight. Bianca winced. "Let go." "Or what?" Veronica challenged softly. Before Bianca could respond, a voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." Michael. He stood at the end of the hallway, watching. Veronica released Bianca immediately, stepping back like nothing happened. "I was just welcoming her." Michael walked closer, his gaze locked on Veronica. "Do it again, and you won't have a hand to use next time." Silence. Veronica smiled faintly, but her eyes burned with something darker. "Of course." Then she walked away, but not defeated, not even close. Later that night, Bianca stood alone again, but this time, she wasn't afraid. She was thinking, planning. "This isn't my world," she whispered to herself, "but I won't die in it." She moved quickly, quietly, finding a phone, dialing. Her hands trembled, but she didn't stop. "This is my only way out." The call connected. "Hello?" A hand grabbed the phone, crushed it instantly. Bianca gasped. Michael stood behind her, silent, deadly. "You really don't learn," he said quietly. Bianca turned to face him, anger rising now. "I'm not your prisoner. You broke the code. I'm trying to survive. And I'm trying to protect what's mine." The words hung in the air. Bianca froze. "What did you just say?" Michael stepped closer, his voice lower now, more dangerous. "You're mine, Bianca." Her heart skipped. Not fear, not entirely. Something else. Something complicated. "You don't get to decide that," she whispered. Michael tilted his head slightly. Too late. Suddenly, Bianca's body went weak, her vision blurred. She stumbled, then collapsed. Darkness. Voices. Distant. Fading in and out. "She's pregnant." Silence. Then Michael's voice. Low. Unbelieving. "What?" Darkness slowly peeled away as Bianca's senses returned. Her body felt heavy, her head spinning, her chest rising unevenly, as if her own breath didn't belong to her. Voices echoed faintly before becoming clearer. "She's pregnant." The words hung in the air like a sentence, not a diagnosis. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. Then Michael's voice cut through it, low and sharp. "What did you just say?" The doctor hesitated before repeating, "She's carrying a child." Bianca's eyes fluttered open at that moment, her vision blurry but enough to see Michael standing at the edge of the room, completely still. He looked different. Not angry, not calm. Something else. Something conflicted. "That's not possible," Bianca whispered weakly, her voice barely audible. Michael's gaze snapped to her instantly. "It is," the doctor said carefully, "and based on what I'm seeing, this isn't normal." That got Michael's attention. Slowly he turned. "Explain." The doctor swallowed. "Her vitals, her blood, it's reacting differently. I've never seen anything like it." Silence followed, but it wasn't empty. It was dangerous. Bianca pushed herself up slightly, ignoring the dizziness. "I don't understand. How is this even—" Michael cut her off. "Leave us." The doctor didn't argue. He walked out quickly, closing the door behind him, leaving them alone. Bianca looked at Michael, searching his face for answers, but he wasn't looking at her like before. This wasn't about control anymore. This was something deeper. "Say something," she demanded softly. Michael walked closer, slow, measured, like he was approaching something fragile or explosive. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "I didn't ask for this," Bianca snapped, her emotions rising despite her weakness. "Neither did I." His voice hardened slightly, but there was something underneath it now. Not anger, conflict. Bianca shook her head. "Then fix it. End this contract. Let me go." Michael stopped right in front of her bed. "You really think it's that simple?" "It should be." "It's not." Silence stretched between them. Then Bianca said the one thing that shifted the entire moment. "I won't raise a child in this world." Michael's jaw tightened. "You don't get to decide that alone." "It's my body." "It's my child." The words hit harder than either of them expected. Bianca froze. Michael exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair, clearly fighting something internally. "You don't understand what this means," he continued, his voice lower now. "Then explain it to me," Bianca shot back. Michael hesitated. That alone was rare. Then he said, "This child isn't just human." Silence. Bianca's heart skipped. "What does that mean?" Michael held her gaze. "It means every enemy I have will want it." The weight of that settled instantly. Bianca's expression shifted from anger to fear. Real fear. "Then we leave," she said quickly. "We disappear, start over somewhere else." Michael almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "There's no somewhere else for people like me." "Then stop being that person," she fired back. "Walk away." That hit, but not enough. Michael's eyes darkened slightly. "I can't." "You won't," Bianca corrected. Silence. Heavy. Then suddenly the door burst open. Marco walked in, followed by Bruno and two armed men. The energy shifted instantly. Dangerous, controlled, final. Bianca felt it before anyone spoke. Something was wrong. Marco's eyes moved from Michael to Bianca, then back again. "We have a problem," he said calmly. Michael didn't react. "Say it." Marco didn't hesitate. "She broke the code." Bianca's heart dropped. Michael's expression didn't change, but the room somehow got colder. "She contacted the outside," Bruno added, quieter but firm. "We confirmed it." Silence. Then Marco stepped forward slightly. "You know what that means." Bianca shook her head quickly. "I didn't say anything. I didn't expose you. I was just trying to—" "It doesn't matter," Marco cut in coldly. "The rule is clear." He looked directly at Michael now. "She dies." The words landed like a gunshot. Bianca's breath caught instantly. Her eyes snapped to Michael, waiting, hoping, praying. Michael didn't speak, didn't move. Seconds stretched into something unbearable. Then Bianca whispered, "Michael." That was the moment everything balanced on. Loyalty or her. Blood or love. Marco's voice came again, slower this time. "Don't let emotion cloud your judgment." Bruno didn't speak, but his eyes were on Michael too, watching, waiting. Bianca's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear anything else. Please, she whispered. Michael finally moved, one step forward, then another, stopping between Bianca and the men. And when he spoke, his voice was no longer conflicted. It was final. No. Silence. Marco's expression hardened instantly. Think carefully. I already have. Michael's tone dropped, dangerous now. No one touches her. The air shifted. Bruno exhaled slightly, tension easing just a fraction. But Marco didn't move. You're choosing her over the family, he asked quietly. Michael didn't hesitate. I'm choosing what's mine. That was it. The line had been drawn. Marco's eyes darkened, not with rage, but something worse. Disappointment. Then you've already lost, he said calmly, before turning away. And just like that, the fracture began. The moment Marco walked out, the silence he left behind wasn't empty. It was a warning. Michael didn't turn around immediately, but when he did, his eyes had changed again. Not conflicted, not restrained. Focused. Dangerous. Decided. We don't have time, he said. Bianca pushed herself up, still weak but fully aware now. Time for what? Michael grabbed his coat, already moving. They won't wait. Marco won't wait. If he couldn't control me, he'll remove the problem. His gaze dropped briefly to her stomach. That includes you and the child. Bianca's breath caught. So what are we doing? Michael looked at Bruno. We move. Now. Bruno didn't hesitate. Car's ready. Within minutes, everything shifted into motion. No announcement, no farewell, no trace. Bianca barely had time to process before she was being escorted through the back exit of the mansion, the cold night air hitting her skin as reality finally settled in. They weren't just leaving, they were running. The car sped through the empty streets, headlights cutting through darkness as tension filled every corner of the vehicle. Bianca sat in the back, her hands clenched tightly together, her thoughts racing faster than the road beneath them. Where are we going? She asked. Michael didn't look back. Somewhere they won't expect. Bruno added, nowhere permanent. That word lingered. Nowhere permanent. Meaning nowhere safe. Bianca exhaled slowly, trying to steady herself. So I just became a target. Overnight. Michael finally glanced at her through the mirror. You were always a target. You just didn't know it yet. Silence followed, heavy but honest. Bianca leaned back slightly, her mind trying to connect everything. Marco, he won't stop, will he? No, Michael replied flatly, and neither will Gonzalez. That name again, it carried weight, blood, death. Bianca frowned. Then we're being hunted from both sides. Bruno let out a dry chuckle. Welcome to the family. Hours later, the car slowed as they reached an isolated property far from the city. Old, quiet, hidden. The kind of place people forget exists. Michael stepped out first, scanning the area with sharp precision before opening Bianca's door. Stay close, he said. She stepped out, her eyes moving over the surroundings. This doesn't look safe. It's not, Michael replied, but it buys us time. Inside, the house was minimally furnished, clearly a temporary safe house. Bianca wrapped her arms around herself, the weight of everything pressing harder now that things were quiet. So this is my life now, she asked softly. Running, hiding, waiting to die. Michael turned to her. Not if I have anything to say about it. Bianca shook her head. You don't control everything. Michael stepped closer. I control enough. Their eyes locked for a moment. Tension, emotion, something deeper neither of them fully understood yet. Then Bruno cleared his throat. I'll secure the perimeter. He stepped out, leaving them alone. The silence that followed was different. Not hostile, not calm either, just real. Bianca sat down slowly, her hand instinctively resting on her stomach. This wasn't supposed to happen, she murmured. Michael watched her, quieter now. Nothing about this was supposed to happen. She looked up at him. Then why does it feel like you're not surprised? That question lingered. Michael didn't answer immediately. Then he said, because from the moment I met you, something felt off. Bianca frowned. Off? Different, he corrected. Your scent, your blood. It's not normal. A chill ran through her. I'm human. Michael's gaze held hers. Are you? Silence. That question didn't just confuse her, it unsettled her. What is that supposed to mean? She asked. Before Michael could respond, Bruno burst back in. We've got movement. Instantly, everything shifted. Michael grabbed a weapon. How many? 3 cars, maybe more behind. Bianca's heart slammed. Already? Michael's voice dropped. Faster than I expected. He turned to Bianca. Stay behind me. No matter what happens, you don't run. I thought running was the plan, she shot back, fear creeping into her voice. Michael stepped closer, his tone firm. Not this time. The sound of engines grew louder, then headlights flooded through the windows. The attack came fast. Gunshots shattered the silence, bullets tearing through glass as chaos erupted. Bianca screamed, dropping to the ground as Michael moved instantly, faster than anything human. One moment he was beside her. The next, he was across the room, disarming a man before he could even fire again. Bruno handled the other side, precise and fearless, his movements sharp and controlled. But these weren't normal attackers. They moved differently, faster, stronger. Bianca saw it clearly now. This wasn't just a war between men. This was something else entirely. Something darker. One of the attackers lunged toward her, but before he could reach her, Michael was there, his hand locked around the man's throat, lifting him effortlessly before slamming him into the wall. Who sent you? Michael demanded, his voice no longer calm. The man laughed, blood spilling from his mouth. You already know. Michael's eyes darkened. Say it. The man smiled. Marco says hello. That was enough. Michael didn't hesitate. He ended him. Silence followed, but only for a second, because more were coming. Bruno reloaded quickly. We need to move, now. Michael nodded, grabbing Bianca's hand this time, not rough, not forced. Firm, protective. Stay with me. They moved fast, exiting through the back just as more vehicles arrived at the front. Bianca's heart pounded violently as they ran into the darkness, gunfire echoing behind them. They're everywhere, she shouted. Not everywhere, Michael replied. Just where we are. They reached the car, but before they could get in, a figure stepped out of the shadows, slow, calm, smiling. Bianca froze, because she recognized her. Veronica. But something about her had changed. Her eyes. They weren't normal anymore. You really thought you could run, Veronica said softly. her voice almost amused. Michael stepped in front of Bianca instantly. "You shouldn't be here." Veronica tilted her head. "And miss all this?" She gestured around. "No, I wouldn't miss this for anything." Bianca's stomach twisted. "She's with them," she whispered. Michael didn't respond, but his silence confirmed it. Veronica smiled wider. "Oh, don't look so surprised. Did you really think loyalty meant anything in our world?" Her gaze shifted to Bianca. "You took something that was never yours." Bianca held her ground despite the fear clawing at her chest. "He's not yours either." That hit, but Veronica didn't react the way he expected. Instead, she laughed. "No, he never was." Her expression darkened. "But if I can't have him," a pause, "no one will." The air shifted instantly, dangerous, explosive. Michael stepped forward slightly. "You're making a mistake." Veronica's eyes flickered, something unstable beneath the surface. "No, Michael. I already made it the day I fell for you." And then, everything exploded again. Veronica moved first, faster than the eye could track, her body blurred through the darkness, heading straight for Bianca. But Michael intercepted instantly. The collision was violent, inhuman, sending shock through the ground beneath them. Bianca stumbled back, her heart racing as she watched something she could barely comprehend. They weren't fighting like people. They were clashing like predators. Veronica's lips curled into a smile as she circled him. "You've gotten slower," she teased, but her tone carried tension. Michael didn't respond. His focus was absolute. "Leave," he said coldly. "Take your men and leave." Veronica laughed softly. "You still think I'm taking orders from you?" Her eyes flicked briefly to Bianca. "This is bigger than you now." That single line shifted everything. Michael noticed it too. "Who are you working for?" he asked. Veronica didn't answer immediately. Instead, she attacked again, forcing him back this time. Bruno fired from the side, keeping the remaining attackers at bay, but the pressure was building. Bianca's breathing grew uneven as she realized this wasn't just an ambush. This was calculated, planned, coordinated, and they were losing time. Michael caught Veronica's wrist mid-strike, slamming her against the car. "Answer me." His voice dropped, lethal. For a second, something flickered in her eyes. Not hatred, not anger, something deeper. "You really don't know," she whispered. Then she leaned closer. "Marco was never on your side." That hit harder than any attack. Michael's grip tightened. "Careful," he warned. "Or what?" she challenged. But her voice softened slightly. "You'll kill me." A pause. "You never could." That moment of hesitation was enough for her to break free, moving back quickly as more headlights approached. Reinforcements. Not theirs. Bianca felt it instantly, the shift in numbers, the imbalance growing worse. "Michael," she called, fear finally breaking through. He looked back at her just for a second, but it was enough to make a decision. "We fall back," he said sharply. Bruno didn't argue. Finally. They moved fast, retreating into the forest behind the safe house, gunfire chasing them into the dark. Veronica didn't follow immediately. She just stood there, watching them disappear, her expression unreadable. Then she turned slowly. "Track them," she ordered. But even as she said it, something in her eyes suggested she wasn't fully committed to that command. They ran deeper into the forest, the noise of the attack fading behind them. Bianca's lungs burned, her legs threatening to give out, but she kept moving. She had no choice. Not anymore. When they finally stopped, the silence was overwhelming. No gunshots, no engines, just breathing. Heavy, uneven, real. Bianca leaned against a tree, trying to steady herself. "We can't keep doing this," she said, her voice shaking despite her effort to stay strong. "We can't keep running like this." Michael didn't respond immediately. He was listening. Always listening. Bruno checked the perimeter quickly before returning. "We've got maybe a few hours before they pick up our trail again." That wasn't reassuring. Bianca closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again, her gaze locking onto Michael. "You heard what she said." He didn't deny it. "Marco," she continued, "you trust him, right?" Michael's expression hardened slightly. "I did." Silence. That single word said everything. Then why would she say that? Michael exhaled slowly. "Because either she's lying," a pause, "or I've been blind." Bruno scoffed lightly. "Wouldn't be the first time someone close turned out to be the problem." That line lingered. Bianca felt it too. "There's something else," she said, her tone shifting. Michael looked at her. "What?" She hesitated, but not for long. "Your father, before he died, he told you to protect me." Michael's eyes narrowed slightly. "I remember." "Why?" she pressed. "Why me?" Silence stretched. Then Michael said something that changed everything. "Because you're not just human." Bianca's heart skipped. "You said that before." "And I meant it." He stepped closer now, his voice lower, more deliberate. "Your blood, it's not normal. It reacts. It calls to something." Bianca shook her head. "That doesn't make any sense." "It doesn't have to," Michael replied. "It just has to be true." That wasn't comforting, not even close. Bianca's thoughts spiraled. Her father, the debt, the contract. None of it felt random anymore. "What if," she started, then stopped. Michael watched her. "Say it." She swallowed. "What if my father didn't owe you?" Silence. Bruno frowned. "That's a stretch." "Is it?" Bianca shot back, "because everything about this feels wrong." Michael didn't interrupt. He was thinking, connecting pieces. "If he didn't owe us," he said slowly, "then why would my father force this marriage?" Bianca met his gaze. "To keep me close." That landed. Hard. Bruno's expression shifted now. Close or controlled. The implications were clear and dangerous. Before anyone could respond, the sound of movement cut through the silence. All three of them reacted instantly. Michael pulled Bianca behind him as Bruno raised his weapon. But the figure that stepped into view wasn't an enemy. Not exactly. Veronica. Alone. No backup, no weapons drawn, just her. Bianca's eyes widened slightly. "You followed us?" Veronica shook her head. "No, I came alone." Michael didn't lower his guard. "That's worse." Veronica ignored him, her gaze settling on Bianca. "You need to listen carefully." Bianca frowned. "Why would I trust anything you say?" "You shouldn't," Veronica replied instantly. "But you should listen." That honesty was unexpected. Michael stepped forward slightly. "You have 10 seconds. Veronica exhaled softly, then said, "Marco is working with Gonzalez." Silence. Heavy. Bruno cursed under his breath. "I knew it." Michael didn't react outwardly, but internally, everything shifted. Veronica continued. "The attack on Alessandro. Marco set it up. Gonzalez just pulled the trigger." Bianca felt her stomach drop. Why? Veronica's expression darkened. Power, control, and something else. She looked at Bianca again. "You." Bianca froze. "Me?" Veronica nodded slowly. "Your father wasn't in debt. He was hiding you." That confirmed it. Everything. Bianca's chest tightened. "From who?" Veronica answered without hesitation. "From them." She gestured slightly toward Michael. "From what you are." Silence. Deafening. Bianca looked at Michael, but he wasn't denying it. Not anymore. "What am I?" she whispered. Veronica held her gaze. "Something rare." A pause. "Something every vampire family would kill to control." That truth settled in like a storm. Bianca's entire life built on a lie. Michael finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. "Why tell us this?" Veronica's expression softened, just slightly. "Because if Marco wins, none of us survive." That included her. Bianca saw it clearly now. This wasn't loyalty. This was survival. "So, what now?" Bianca asked quietly. Veronica glanced at Michael. "Now, we stop him." Bruno let out a breath. "You expect us to trust you?" Veronica smirked faintly. "No, I expect you to need me." Silence followed. Then Michael made the decision. "She stays." Bianca looked at him. "You're serious?" Michael met her gaze. "We don't have the luxury of clean alliances anymore." That was true, and dangerous. Veronica stepped closer, but not too close. Careful. Measured. "Then we start with Italy," she said. "That's where Marco is consolidating power." Bruno nodded slowly. "And where Gonzalez will be waiting." Bianca exhaled quietly, her hand resting on her stomach again. "So we're not running anymore?" Michael looked at her. "No." His voice hardened. "Now we hunt." The flight to Italy was silent, but not peaceful. Every second in the air felt like borrowed time. Bianca sat still, her thoughts louder than the engine, her hand resting unconsciously on her stomach as everything she thought she knew continued to unravel. Across from her, Veronica leaned back with her eyes half closed, calm on the surface, but alert beneath it, while Bruno checked his weapon for the third time. Michael stood near the window, unmoving, his reflection staring back at him like something he no longer fully recognized. "Say it," he said suddenly without turning. Bianca frowned. "Say what?" "Whatever you've been thinking since she told you the truth." Silence. Then Bianca exhaled. "You knew." It wasn't a question. Michael didn't deny it. "Not everything," he replied, "but enough." That stung more than a lie. "So my life, my father, all of it was just part of your world?" Bianca's voice tightened. Michael finally turned. "No, it became part of my world the moment you signed that contract." "A contract you forced on me," she shot back. "A contract that kept you alive," he corrected calmly. That ended that argument, but not the tension. Veronica watched quietly, studying both of them. "You two can fight later," she said. "Right now, if we don't move carefully, Marco will already be 10 steps ahead." Bruno nodded. "She's right. He knows how we think." Michael's gaze darkened. "Then we stop thinking like him." That meant one thing: unpredictability, danger, escalation. Italy welcomed them with beauty and blood waiting beneath it. The Montero estate stood on the outskirts, ancient, powerful, untouched by time, but not by betrayal. "This is where it started," Bruno muttered. "And where it ends," Michael replied. They didn't walk in blindly. Every step was calculated, every shadow observed. But what they didn't expect was how quiet it was. Too quiet. "No guards," Bianca whispered. Veronica frowned slightly. "That's not normal." Michael's expression hardened. "It's a message." Before anyone could react, the doors opened. Slowly, on their own. And inside, Marco waited. Calm, seated, as if expecting them. "Took you long enough," he said smoothly. "No panic, no urgency, just control." Bianca felt it instantly. This wasn't a confrontation, this was a setup. Michael stepped forward, his presence filling the space with quiet dominance. "You betrayed him," he said flatly. Marco didn't flinch. "No," he replied calmly. "I outgrew him." That answer alone confirmed everything. Bruno cursed under his breath. Veronica's jaw tightened. Bianca felt something cold settle in her chest. "You had him killed," Michael continued. "Yes." No hesitation, no regret, just truth. "Why?" Michael asked. Marco stood slowly now, adjusting his suit like this was nothing more than business. "Because Alessandro was holding the family back. Old rules, old systems, old thinking." His eyes locked onto Michael. "And you were supposed to be different." Michael's gaze darkened. "I am." Marco smiled faintly. "Then prove it. Kill her." The words hit instantly. Bianca froze. Bruno tensed. Veronica's eyes flickered. Michael didn't move. "No," he said. Marco's smile faded slightly. "Then you've already failed." Silence stretched. Then Marco gestured lightly, and suddenly men stepped out from every shadow. Armed, ready, waiting. "You see," Marco continued, "this was never about just power." His gaze shifted to Bianca. "It was about evolution." Bianca's heart pounded. "What are you talking about?" Marco stepped closer, studying her like a specimen. "Your father was brilliant. He knew what you were." Bianca shook her head. "Stop saying that like it means something." Marco's voice dropped slightly. "It means you're the key to something far greater than any of us." That was when Michael moved. Not to attack, but to stand directly in front of Bianca. Protective. Final. "You're not touching her." Marco sighed softly. "Still emotional. That's your weakness." "No," Michael replied quietly. "That's yours." And then everything broke. Gunfire erupted instantly, chaos exploding through the estate as alliances shattered in seconds. But Marco wasn't caught off guard. He had planned for this. His men moved with precision, surrounding them from every angle. Bruno fired back relentlessly, holding one side, while Veronica moved fast, too fast, taking down 2 attackers before they could even react. Bianca stayed low, her breathing uneven as the reality of everything hit harder than ever. This wasn't survival anymore. This was war. Michael moved like something unleashed, no longer holding back, his strikes brutal, efficient, final. But even he couldn't be everywhere at once. More men kept coming. "We're outnumbered!" Bruno shouted. "Not for long," Michael replied coldly. Then he did something none of them expected. He stopped holding back completely. His eyes burned red, his movements sharpened, faster, stronger, deadlier. This wasn't control anymore. This was dominance. Bianca saw it clearly now. The monster he had been trying to hide was gone, and in its place stood something terrifying, something unstoppable. Marco noticed it too, and for the first time his expression shifted slightly. "Good," he said under his breath. "That's what I wanted to see." That was the truth. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a test. And Michael was passing it in the worst possible way. The tide began to turn. One by one, Marco's men fell. Veronica fought beside Bruno now, their movements unintentionally synchronized, their trust forming in the middle of chaos. Bianca stayed behind cover, but her eyes never left Michael. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. She understood him, and that was more dangerous. Finally, the room cleared, bodies everywhere, silence returning slowly. Only Marco remained, standing, calm, almost impressed. "Now that," he said softly, "is a leader." Michael stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "This ends now." Marco smiled faintly. "No, this begins now." And before anyone could react, he moved, but not toward Michael, toward Bianca. Too fast, too sudden. Bianca gasped as Marco's hand closed around her throat, pulling her up slightly, using her as leverage instantly. "Still your weakness," he whispered. Michael froze, just for a second. And that second was everything. Bianca's feet barely touched the ground as Marco's grip tightened around her throat. Her breath hitched instantly, fingers clawing at his wrist as panic surged through her body. "You see," Marco said calmly, his voice almost conversational despite the chaos around them. "Power always comes down to leverage." Michael stood still, but everything about him screamed violence barely contained. "Let her go." His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. Marco smiled slightly. "Or what? You'll kill me?" A pause. "You need me alive." That wasn't entirely wrong, and that hesitation cost everything. Bianca's vision blurred, her strength fading as Marco tightened his grip just enough to remind everyone he was in control. Bruno shifted slightly, trying to angle a shot, but Marco adjusted instantly. "Careful," he warned softly, "or she dies first." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then Bianca did something none of them expected. She stopped struggling. Her hands slowly dropped, her breathing steadied, not because she was safe, but because she had made a decision. Her eyes locked onto Michael's, and in that moment, something passed between them. Understanding, trust, risk. Then, she moved. Her knee drove upward hard into Marco's side, not enough to break him, but enough to distract him. Enough to loosen his grip for half a second. And that half second was all Michael needed. He moved, faster than thought, one moment frozen, next moment in front of them. Marco barely had time to react before Michael's hand drove straight through his chest. Silence followed. Marco's eyes widened slightly, shock replacing control for the first time. He looked down at Michael's hand, then back up at him. "You chose wrong," he whispered. Michael's expression didn't change. "No," he replied quietly. "You did." Then he pulled his hand out. Marco collapsed, just like that. The man who orchestrated everything was gone. Bianca dropped to her knees, coughing violently as air rushed back into her lungs. Michael was beside her instantly. "Are you okay?" She nodded weakly, still catching her breath. "I'm fine." Bruno exhaled deeply, lowering his weapon. "Well, that's one problem solved." Veronica didn't speak immediately. She just stared at Marco's body, her expression unreadable. "Not the biggest one," she said finally. That reminder hit fast. Gonzalez, still out there, still waiting. Michael stood slowly, his gaze shifting toward the distance like he could already feel what was coming next. "He'll make his move now," he said. "Good," Bruno replied. "I'm tired of chasing ghosts." Bianca stood carefully, her body still weak but her resolve stronger than ever. "Then we end it." Michael looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, there was no resistance in his expression, only agreement. We end it. The final move came quickly. A party, loud, crowded, public, exactly the kind of place no one would expect a massacre. Lucas Gonzalez stood at the center of it all, smiling, drinking, unaware, or maybe unconcerned about the storm walking toward him. "You're sure about this?" Bianca asked quietly as they approached from the shadows. Michael didn't hesitate. "He thinks you're dead." Bianca's eyes hardened. "Then let's keep it that way, until it's too late." Veronica adjusted her position beside Bruno, her tone quieter now. "We only get one shot." Bruno smirked slightly. "Then let's make it count." The music played, laughter filled the air, and then everything changed. The lights cut out. For 1 second, darkness. Then chaos. Screams erupted as the attack began, fast and precise. Bruno moved first, taking down the outer guards before they could even react. Veronica followed, her movements sharp and efficient. No hesitation, no mercy. Michael walked straight through the center, untouched, unstoppable, his presence alone enough to shift the energy of the entire room. Lucas turned, confusion flashing across his face before recognition hit. "You," he muttered. Michael didn't respond. He just kept walking. "Impossible," Lucas continued, stepping back slightly. "You should be dead." Michael stopped a few feet away. "You first." That was all he said. Then the room exploded again. Lucas fought back hard, brutal, fast, desperate. But it wasn't enough. Not this time. Not against everything Michael had become. Every move Lucas made, Michael countered. Every strike matched, then surpassed. Bianca watched from the edge, her heart pounding, her hands clenched, knowing this was the end of everything that had started long before her. Finally, Michael grabbed Lucas, slamming him into the ground with enough force to crack the floor beneath them. Lucas coughed, blood spilling from his mouth as he laughed weakly. "You think this ends it?" he said. Michael leaned down slightly. "It already has." And with that, he ended him. No hesitation, no speech, just finality. Silence slowly returned. The music stopped. The bodies didn't move. And just like that, the war was over. Time passed. Not long, but enough for everything to change. The Montero empire didn't fall. It evolved. Michael didn't rebuild it the same way. He shifted it. Legal fronts, clean operations, power without exposure. Bianca stood beside him not as a prisoner, but as a partner, a voice, a mind he actually listened to. The world saw a businessman. They didn't see the monster beneath. Bruno became what he was always meant to be, Michael's right hand. Loyal, unshaken. And Veronica, she stayed. Not as an enemy, not as a lover. Something else. Something undefined, but no longer alone. One night, standing on the balcony overlooking the city, Bianca rested her hand on her stomach again, quieter now, calmer. "Do you ever think about what we've done?" she asked softly. Michael stepped beside her. "Every day." "And it doesn't haunt you?" He looked at her. "It used to." A pause. "Now, I just make sure it was worth it." Bianca exhaled slowly, leaning slightly into him. "And was it?" Michael didn't answer immediately. His gaze dropped briefly to her stomach, then back to her eyes. "Ask me again, when the child is born." Silence followed, but it wasn't heavy this time. It was something else, something earned. Because in the end, she didn't escape the darkness. She became part of it. And somehow, that's exactly where she was meant to be. If you made it to the end, you already know this wasn't just a story. It was a transformation. Like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you choose love if it meant becoming something dangerous? Because Bianca did, and she never looked back.